That would have been great. Hey, Greg, how are you? Can you hear us okay, Greg?
Yeah, I can hear you fine now.
Very cool. We'll just wait for a few people to come in and start this. And usually YouTube Live launches a few minutes after we start this. So we actually had a bunch of people at YouTube Live on the one I did last Thursday with Matt Lehman. So there's people starting to get pinged on the Materials Exchange YouTube Live channel, which is what should happen. How's it going? Okay, there it goes. It just launched on YouTube. How's it going over there, Nick? What kind of volume we got? Nothing yet. Yeah, just wait for a few more to come in here. How'd you hit him the other day, Matt? Okay.
No, I'm no good.
We are live, just so y'all know that. I just figured we'd ask. So I mean, you did hit a little different yesterday.
No, I didn't play yesterday. I might go hit some balls this afternoon if I have time. But
Gotcha.
and I was in the fairway like every hole, and then I shot a 91. So that goes to show you how my irons and my putting and my chipping went not very well.
Gotcha.
But I drove the ball well.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, we'll start it up here, guys. So just welcome to the Materials Exchange channel. This is our This Week in Lumber with Matt Beamer and Greg Riley. Great feedback from last week's show. I actually had people calling me that night asking about some things, especially about when we talked about mill curtailments and mills rationalizing capacity. That must have struck a nerve because I had a whole bunch of people actually call me and give me their feedback on it, which was really good. I thought it created some good conversation. So again, we'll start this show off right now. Please say where you're from and any comments over in the bleep blooper on the right hand side there, or wherever it's at. Maybe it's down below on yours. Make sure if you're on YouTube Live, you subscribe. Sign up on our LinkedIn channel so you can get notified of this every time it comes. So we're busy this morning putting buys and sells together. We're having a lot of interesting people coming in, especially on the multifamily side, bidding on stuff on the platform. And Greg, you said that was an interesting thing to talk about. Matt, we hooked up on one yesterday, which was good. Brand new buyer was ecstatic that he was able to buy a straight truck of 2x6. Bought a 2x4 and a 2x6 straight 20 from us into Las Vegas, and never thought he would have the opportunity to buy straight trucks like this. So he's really excited. So if you want to get on our platform, come to mxlumber.com, register. We'll get you on buying and selling immediately. So let's talk about a bonjour from France. Bonjour.
Sweden in the house.
Dave, hi from Sweden. Good to have you on from Sweden. So look I had a note today from somebody that's not in the industry sending me a note saying, hey, I'm looking at this basis right now on, first of all, it's crazy because somebody outside of the industry is asking, how can I get on your platform and take advantage of this basis if I buy cash now and sell in the future? And he goes, do you know of anybody doing that? I go, I actually do know of people doing that, right? So, but the interesting thing is it brought me up to the conversation that I thought was this whole thing. Let's just talk about basis again. Cash is still cheap. Futures are still expensive. We're in the expiration right now. Why are people buying 4-inch cars and delivering them into the futures, or why? We'll start with you, Greg. We've talked about this quite a bit. What's your thought on that whole basis thing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I put out yesterday, I set a pretty wide net on, saying that I was interested in EFPing, Western spruce, Eastern spruce, Euro. Tell me what you want. And I guess my surprise was that I didn't get really very much industry response. And really no, like a couple people were interested, but I mean, the reality is if you're a buyer, of
Mhm.
lumber,
Yes.
why would you pay $70 or $80 above the current cash market or more to do it through the futures market? And so what that leads me to believe is that there's something fundamentally different about the makeup of the futures participants in September. Either A, they're non-industry people, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or B, they're a very strong long, but not looking to get the lumber.
Yeah. So what if people, if they know people are going to deliver into it?
Excuse me?
So these aren't people that would be wanting to take delivery if somebody was in there and decided to deliver that.
Yeah, I'm saying is
Maybe just a guess.
if
Yeah.
they're non-industry people, then they're not be looking. And so I mean, the other shocking thing to me, Ash, is that
Do we lose Greg? Matt, I'll kick it over to you until Greg comes back.
I think we lost Greg, but my thought on the September contract is the whole story hasn't been told yet. I mean, we've been through a lot of these two-week expirations where you don't really see the actual convergence until the last 48 hours.
Yep.
And so
I got kicked off there, Ash.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, let's try again with Greg.
Go ahead, Greg. Finish your thought.
I mean, I rolled to November for $50 a thousand, which I mean, in all the years that I've been doing this, it's absolutely unheard of that, the average spread in November is normally $20 below September because, the seasonal low for lumber prices is, late October or November. So
Right.
Go ahead, Matt.
So Matt brought up a good point. Matt was saying the story hasn't been told. So go ahead, Matt.
I've been in the same situation that Greg's talking about, where I wanted to exit. I was in the board, I had the wood, and crickets. I will say this though, that doesn't really tell you the whole story. You won't really see the whole story until we get into the last 72 hours of the contract, right? I mean, who's really going to show their hand? And I doubt it. Greg, honestly, I doubt it's a strong long. I mean, how low has the September contract gotten? Not much lower than it is right now. So how strong could you be, right? Like maybe you got $10 showing it. Woohoo!
Well, I mean, you could be strong and wrong, right? You could be long. You could be long at $900 and be.
You could
be strong and wrong.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I try not to read too much into whatever September's going to do because it's a free for all right now. It could go up $40 or down $40 in a day, in an hour, and none of that would surprise you or me because we've been through it before. This is not abnormal. I think most likely what's going to happen is just cash is just going to trade upwards towards the futures contract, and at the very end there'll be the settlement. With the September, it'll probably settle a little lower than what people think. But these back months really have me intrigued. November and January. I mean, somebody's really bullish on lumber prices going into historically one of the worst times of the year to be long lumber. You typically aren't wanting to buy a bunch of January futures at $60, $70 premiums in September.
So I read a few things into it. One, that our industry lacks education, knowing that anybody can EFP anything. Kirk Miller just put something up, says some participants commit a certain number of EFPs with particular mills prior to spot month. Yeah, a bunch of the buying groups sometimes go out and have a certain amount of cookie cutter EFPs they do, but anybody can EFP anything with anybody, long and short, right?
Right.
I think that's education. I think people don't know that they don't have to be a mill to deliver into futures. Or what has happened when we've all had this conversation in the past, somebody knows something that we don't know, right? Like here's my big wide conspiracy story. Somebody's going to come out sometime between this long weekend expiration and make an announcement that they're curtailing some stuff, and it'll be a big mill. That's my conspiracy thought, right? Because spreads this wide means somebody knows something that they're not telling other people. And, we had that one big announcement last time the spread was this big. And I don't know if it means anything, because at this point, I think mills taking wood off the market is more bearish than bullish. But yesterday, the whole story was there was a lot of overseas business done, right?
Yeah.
That whole story is coming out again. Hey, we didn't sell anything in the States, but we sold it overseas, right? And that probably is true, right? Because you get a better price.
Or you don't get a better price.
Or you don't get a better price, but you move the lumber off, right?
Here I look at that a little differently, because we as a company have been part of that export business for years.
Yeah.
It is a big part of how we look at the entire marketplace. Well, for the last several years, the export market hasn't been all that great, because the North American market is willing to pay more across the board for stuff, and that could be economy, that could be premium. It doesn't really matter. It's just all products in between.
Yep.
When the price of lumber goes back to something that starts with a 2 or a 3, well, the rest of the world is now your marketplace, right?
For sure.
So that gives all the mills, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or in New Zealand, or in Europe or in America, every mill that has lumber that starts with a 2 or a 3 now is able to participate in the broader worldwide market that never really changes. That market is always there for you at $200 to $300. It's always going to be there, right? Yeah. They don't pay $500-600. They never pay $500-600 unless they absolutely have to, like a gun to their head. Yep. But if you get nervous and you don't like your position as a sawmill and you got to go down to 320, 330, 350 mil to make some stuff go away, there's literally millions of cubic feet of demand sitting there in the world for you to just grab, right?
That's a great point, Matt. I like.
So that gives you a hard bottom, right? It always gives you a hard bottom unless the entire worldwide economy just goes to hell, which is what happened in 2008, right? The entire worldwide economy went to hell. We went to $88 on low grade. I mean, I bought number 3 at $88 in volume, right? We sold and bought 2 and better at 120 mil because the entire worldwide economy was broken, right? But it's not completely broken right now. It's just adjusted. So there you go.
That's a good point, Matt. It's funny. I was looking every morning. I come in when people put bids and offers up. I line them up by price, and I saw a number today, like at 290, and I'm like, oh, that's got to be a low grade number. It was 2x8 number 2 Southern Yellow Pine, 16s. I'm like, yeah. You finally it kind of slaps you in the face. You're like, that number's crazy compared to what it was a month and a half, 2 months ago. That's a kind of an eye opener. You're like, you're right, Matt. I mean, that's a good point. Like the on-grade market has dropped. So let's go talk about the overall market. It seems like things have, I mean, would I be correct in saying at least the low trade price is gone. They've firmed up. I mean, I read on social media, a lot of the people, it seems like a lot of people have built inventories again and are promoting it from the long side. But I guess that kind of makes sense where we're at right now. Greg, what do you think on that?
I mean, we talked last week, and I think we said that, the market was probably bottoming. And right now, I would say, that process is continuing. There's some items that are, maybe have bounced $10, $20, $30, $50 from their low trade price. There's some other items that are still trying to find that price level. I see a wide range, and we talked about this last week. There's a lot of shadow inventory that is out in the marketplace that different players may have that may be somewhere $500, $1,000 above today's price in terms of a cost. And there's lots of this, so you see that happen. You see something happen, and all of a sudden you think the market's better, and then you see a transaction happen. And I'm guessing that a lot of that is someone throwing in the towel on something and, lunging. But by and large, in my world, in Eastern spruce, the market has firmed, and some items are actually trading above their low trade. Yep. In European spruce on the East Coast has not bottomed. European spruce is still under pressure. Port by port, item by item, depending on it. There's still some things happening there that are crazy.
Matt, how about
I have
you?
a question. Well, I'm seeing affirming on the stuff that I sell right now and has been going on for the last 72 hours or so. I would say that my business is back to just normal, and so I can go out and make offers to my sawmills and negotiate with them on tally and price and ship time, like a normal conversation that I've always had with them. I don't feel under any kind of weird pressure like I did back in March, April, May, when I was dealing with really expensive decisions, and really risky decisions that I was never really trained to make. And so I'm comfortable right now, and I think my customers are comfortable with the price of lumber and the volume of lumber that's being consumed, and they've kind of got back into the groove too. I mean, guys are starting to come back and just do the normal, Texas two-step, I guess you call it. Buying their handful of cars every day and looking at their inventory reports every weekend, and come in the next week and just rinse and repeat. Like that's what I'm doing. And it seems like my customers are back to that style of business for the most part. I feel comfortable, I guess, with the market, and that's a good thing. I have a question though. I wanted to change the subject real quick. We have Christopher from Sweden.
Yeah,
Christopher from Sweden. Is there COVID in Sweden? Are you guys locked down over there or not? I'm kind of curious because I think Sweden just went completely different compared to the rest of the world. They just said, yeah, whatever. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a great question for Christopher and for France, for the person from France. We'll wait for him to come back and find out if he says that. Well, it's kind of interesting what I heard you and Greg both say. It's perfect. Like, it's refreshing for you to say business is back to normal. That's a great summary. Went from two big extremes. Maybe we're settling out in here. And between you and Greg, both of you are saying, like, look at it. If you're a person that hedges or does stuff, there's some opportunity if you want to look at it right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know if Chris is in lockdown here. I haven't heard back from him yet. We'll see what he says here. Let's go. Kind of products we talked about. I mean, I haven't seen anything, Matt. Maybe U.S. species. Is there anything different there? I've seen last week people were looking at orders on studs, and it's probably settled out a little bit, right?
I think studs are better for sure, and in some cases we've sold for $50 higher than what we would have sold for a week and a half ago. So studs for sure better. Green lumber is starting to get bought up. Like there's green lumber out there right now today you could buy that starts with a 2 or a low 3, and that's getting sold. We're starting to really get back to seeing some volume come through the system on green lumber. Dry spruce for our Western spruce mill business is good. We're actually selling what we want to sell in a tidy fashion, and we're getting the numbers that we're asking for. We're not really having to negotiate on tally or price right now. People are just satisfied with what we're offering them, and they're taking it. And we're able to just kind of keep selling as each day comes and goes. There isn't a lot of dry hem fir narrow lumber around right now. If you're looking at Western species, most of the 2x4 and 2x6 hem fir has been gobbled up in the last 2 weeks. So that is really probably going to steer more people to dry dug fir narrows if they want to buy, something that's more in line with spruce pricing.
That's what happened yesterday with that guy that I talked to. He was looking for spruce, but he said dry dug fir is absolutely fine and bought it, right?
So I would be, if I'm speculating, I would really look hard at green lumber. It's so much cheaper than dry lumber. And then dry hem fir narrows being hard to buy, that's always a good thing, right? I mean, if you could find an equivalent deal in spruce or white fir or Doug fir, then yeah, you might want to start looking at that kind of stuff. But I think the wides in hem fir and Doug fir dry are still under a little bit of pressure. I think mills have it, and the customers don't want it necessarily in the same volumes that they did back in the springtime, because it's just that time of year where wide lumber just doesn't have as much flair to it.
So can I ask one quick question, Matt? Why aren't mills delivering 4-inch into the board right now at these premiums? Just curious.
I bet they're trying, but who wants to take 485 September when you can go buy a cash car at 430?
No, but I mean, why aren't mills delivering?
Well, like Ashley's saying, why isn't the market being offered lower? Right. I mean, if guys were coming in selling, 5-10 cars at the market, 5-10 cars at the market in a liquidating market, it would be, and I mean, and it's moved down a little.
Yeah.
But and I think Ash, part of it is, to Matt's point, is the cash market's better. The last 60 days has been dominated by end-use consumers reducing their inventory. And I think in some cases, not all, but a decent number of cases, they've gotten their inventories back in line because business is still quote unquote good.
That's a good point. Well, this James is asking a question here. If the market is bouncing around the bottom, is Mill's strategy to build order file or firm prices? Matt, I'll give you that one because you're pretty good at answering.
Originally, I'd say over the last 2 weeks, the first thing that the mills do when the market is trying to bottom is they go for the order file, right? They don't. The very first thing mills do in a down market, once they start seeing some volume come in, they want those orders, even if they have to give up an extra $5 or $10 or $20 to get them, because it gives them the order file that they seek, to then turn around and say, next week, I can't quote this, and maybe raise the price in the future, right? But without the order file first, it's the chicken and the egg. The chicken lays the egg, and in this case, the order file creates the higher price. So mills always seek an order file at the bottom of the market, and then eventually, if they're lucky, if their strategy works, they will raise the price because another wave of buyers will come in later and say, I want more of this. And the mill's like, we don't have it.
Yeah.
Well, what if I pay you an extra 30? Oh, well, we can put a few cars on for 3 weeks out. Okay. So that's how mills are actually able to raise price, is by building the order file first.
Hey, so I want to say hi to Tom Mabry, originally an Evanston resident, greetings from Jacksonville, Florida. So what? That's interesting, Matt, on the order file. So sawmills in France are running 115% since April 2020 to supply mostly French markets because we had a lack of delivery from other European suppliers. France is mainly import market in softwood. No COVID restrictions for our industry, but same issue with finding staff. Same situation in mainly all Europe as vaccination rates are good. We still have high prices in Europe, and most mills have backlogs from traditional markets in North Africa. Biggest problem is supply to the U.S. at today's price is the logistical costs. So that's one of the things I don't follow the logistical costs that much. I see it on social media. So those have actually gone up quite a bit, right? Greg and Matt, from Europe over to here, I'm guessing. Does that sound right?
I bet Greg knows a lot more about that than I do.
Yeah, I mean the rates are up. That's for sure. I'm not sure that it's a transportation. It's much more significant if you're shipping product from Asia to West Coast ports than it is the break bulk to the East Coast. They added a lot of capacity. The bigger issue with U.S. East Coast is the lack of space at ports that is, and the port congestion that's brought about. But I've been talking to people. I'm saying over the next somewhere in the next 60 to 90 days, there's going to be a slowdown on that wood flow. It's one of the shipping lines has delayed some shipments to give ports time to clear wood out. Some ports are not accepting any more vessels until wood moves out. So that's a process that's going to happen, and I think it's one of the things that's going to, act as a governor on at least the spruce market in the East Coast, right? So
I think another problem that nobody's really talking about here is the actual wood once it arrives in the port. So I'm dealing with this right now, where the companies that I've dealt with in the past in terms of handling the material once it's been received from the vessels in the ports that I use,
Yeah.
are experiencing all kinds of labor problems themselves. And
Good.
so I've lost expertise in terms of the people and the companies that I'm dealing with. They don't have the employees right now that they had a year ago. And so they don't necessarily know how to count my inventory very well. They don't necessarily know how to line up trucks for me. They don't really, you got a bunch of new people in there that don't know what an order is. I mean, like they're having to train new people all the time if they can even hire new people. So there's staffing problems in the ports that are affecting the outflow of material from the ports to the U.S. customer. Not anything to do with shipping it from Europe over here. I'm talking about once it's already got here.
Right.
That's a whole nother logistical problem that I'm now dealing with, and it makes me, an importer, not want to import anymore. Honestly, it's making me like say, you know what, this was fun for a few years, but I don't need the hassle. I can go buy some more of this lumber. It's not quite as nice, but I can buy similar lumber from a North American mill and ship it on a choo-choo train into a similar market, and not have to worry with all the logistics going forward until they can figure this out. Because it's not just lumber that's having labor issues. It's everything in the United States that's having labor. And apparently it's everything in Europe that's having labor issues also. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. That's a problem.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, we'll finish it up with talking about Matt Gregg and I talked before this thing, and he said, multifamily is kind of he's seeing a lot more activity in the multifamily buyers coming in, circling the wagons. The guys that buy the 90 days of cash, and then they come to you guys and say, "Hey, what can you get me for the next 6 months?" Right. So, Greg, what are you seeing on that? And
I see a steady stream of orders being placed by the multifamily people. Whether it's starting next week, 2 weeks from now, early October, November. It's a steady stream. And back to your issue, Ash. I've had a few in markets where there's a limit in space in terms of reload space on where we can position lumber for it. And so that's an issue in some markets for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, Matt, how about you?
I'm like Greg. I'm seeing more or steady, I guess. One of the interesting results or consequences of what happened to lumber prices in the last 18 months was that some of these multifamily buyers have gotten a lot more savvy to the lumber world than they used to be. And
that's a great point.
So they're now using materials exchange, which they never would have even thought of, 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Or they're calling new suppliers directly. They're just starting to do this business like they're a new company, And so there's just more of that around than there was. A lot of that business was handled by 5 or 6 or 7 companies.
Yep.
And that business is now sort of fragmenting a little bit into different niches of how it's going to be handled in the future. It'd be really interesting to see how it gets sorted out.
It's a great point, Matt. We've had 10 or 15 people that have bought from some of those traditional 5 people come to us now and say, "Hey, can you put per piece pricing on here?" I mean, think about that, because they've bought it for so many years and not really, they bought it per piece, right? And they're like, it was a second thought. I have this big of a budget. Go take care of this for me, right? Now they're saying, "Hey, we need to mind our store a little bit better," or whatever. Can you put per piece on it? So it's kind of driving our internal conversation about what we're gonna offer that on the platform, per piece and dollars per thousand in the future. Well, that was a great show so far today, guys. I appreciate it. We went 33 minutes, so I thank you very much for your time today, Matt and Greg. And one thing I do want to say for any multifamily people or anybody out there, Matt and Greg both are experts in forward pricing markets, right? And putting numbers in the future. So if you want to take delivery on very specific items physically to any location on truck in the future, they're both really good at doing that. And I would say to contact both of them, talk to them about it, and use their expertise to do that. So Hope a little plug for you guys.
Thanks, guy.
Yeah. Thanks, and get your bids up on Materials Exchange.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
all right, guys. You guys have a great rest of the week. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
See you, buddy.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Yep. See you, Matt.